For over half a century, humans have endeavored to make business a force for good. But is the movement working? Or is it time to explore a new path forward? Welcome to Less Talk, More Action. We are your hosts, Joel Caesar and Owen Barrett, experts in clean energy, net zero real estate, decarbonization, and entrepreneurship. In each episode, we ask provocative questions and share stories from the front lines of sustainability with leaders in science, tech, and business taking real action to design a cleaner, better future. Thanks for joining the conversation. Now, let's get to work. Welcome to Less Talk, More Action podcast. My name is Joel Caesar, the world's undisputed voice of building decarbonization. Joining me as always is Owen Barrett, the self-proclaimed Adam Newman of Green Building. Today's guest, James Darius Ball, director of the Future Cities Initiative at the National Building Museum in Washington, D.C. What a passionate guy, interesting take on the field. You know, I've known James for years, and he's been in and out of building and design and sustainability media, and like the role he's in now. I was really curious to see how, where he's taking it, and I think I learned a lot, different perspective here today.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, man, he makes me feel like I'm just operating on such a micro level that I gotta like reframe my perspective. I mean, I've lived by this, my like internal slogan is decarbonizing the planet one building at a time. This is literally what we do, one building at a time. And he had a line in the pod where it's like, building is not the right unit of measurement. We gotta think about this from a city perspective. And so he's super optimistic and just kind of comes at these things with a different lens than I think what I'm used to, at least.
Yeah, and cool to learn about the National Building Museum in D.C., something I didn't know much about. It sounds like a really cool place.
Yeah, I like the idea for a live pod there.
Live pod at the National Building Museum. That's going to happen.
Yeah.
Well, before we get into all that with James, let's dive into a segment we're calling Owen and Joel Play Climate Skeptics. Okay, so we're doing a show here about sustainability, about climate. You and I have been working in this field a long time. We're obviously believers in the theory, the science behind climate change and global warming, that humans and the use of fossil fuels mainly are warming the atmosphere over time and creating climate change, right? You agree with that statement?
I agree with it. I don't think it's a theory anymore. I think it's a fact.
Okay. So why are we going to be climate skeptics? Well, came across an article recently where it says a satellite-based study using NASA's missions analyzed by Tongli University found that Antarctica gained roughly 108 gigatons of ice per year from 2021 to 2023, reversing a previous loss of about 142 gigatons a year during 2011 to 2030. Why? Scientists link this uptick to anomalously high snowfall, not cooler temperatures, causing increased accumulation. Don't get carried away. The ice gain is short-term, not reversal of long-term melting trend. Okay. Fact checkers warn cherry pickers data can mislead. So, all right, we don't want to be the cherry picking data misleading here. But I do find it interesting. I stumbled across this on Facebook, and it was, I grew up in Pennsylvania. I have some friends who like to nudge me about climate science and some articles they read once in a while that think we're all full of shit. And so this was one where I was like, whoa, this is a NASA satellite and this is real science. So it's interesting no one else is talking about this. And yeah, I think we'll agree here that this seems short-term, anomalistic, not reversal of long-term trend. But I don't know. It's been, you and I graduated grad school in 2012. I would say when we were getting our master's in environmental science and management at UC Santa Barbara, the Brent School, top-notch program globally, I was pretty solid in my scientific understanding of climate change back then, right? Like, remember that first course we had to take our first year that was so hard around
science, right?
Yeah, it was incredible scientific knowledge
Yeah.
and detail we had to understand about what was causing the dynamics in the atmosphere. But I don't know, it's been 13 years since I've dug into the science, and shouldn't we be paying attention if things change? And we don't know. I mean, out of all the things in the topic of climate change, right? Everything we discussed that's real, it's basic science too about global warming is because these gases, greenhouse gases, do trap heat in the atmosphere. That's why we have a planet that works the way it does. That's a good thing we all acknowledge. So all of the science totally agree with, but the prediction of what's going to happen is where, I don't know, it gets murky, right?
Yeah. No, I agree. I think the worst thing our community can do is pretend like we know what the outcomes are going to be. Because then when you have, what did you say it was? An anomalistic
Snowfall or something.
event.
Yeah.
It makes us all look like a bunch of idiots. So I don't think you can guarantee that trapping heat will definitively reduce Antarctic sea ice, because here we're seeing that it doesn't necessarily. So I think when we paint ourselves into like one corner about what the outcomes are going to be, and then we don't acknowledge adverse outcomes, it makes us look like we don't know what we're talking about, and that the whole thing could in fact be a big farce. So I think you got to talk about the news as it happens and not try and hide headlines if that's what's going on here.
Yeah. And we talked about it on a previous episode about the prediction of, once we hit 1.5 degrees warming compared to then.
Oh, we're fucked.
Miami's going to be gone, and there's going to be a giant hurricane that destroys the Gulf every year, and there's going to be no water left in California. It's like, well,
yeah,
there's symptoms that things are worse in those places, but like, yeah, these predictions, okay, now we passed 1.5. What's going to happen when we get to 2? Oh, I can't imagine what some of the folks were saying about what happens at 2 degrees. But the point is, it just diminishes everyone's credibility if we just hold on to this prediction of what's going to happen, because, again, we can have the precautionary principle idea, and I think that's what most of us in climate think about. Like, hey, let's not play around with this science experiment, and while we could reduce the emissions, like that's the way we should operate. We all agree on that, but let's not also at the same time act like we know it's going to lead to Armageddon.
I could not agree more. I think that was like the best thing you've said on any podcast ever. You should just retire.
Well, I'm going to retire on a bit called Joel the Climate Skeptic. It's come full circle. Well, that was fun. We'll have to keep revisiting if good news, or I don't know if the good news is the right way to say it, if, different news arises around impacts of climate. But yeah, that was fun. Let's keep doing it. As always, on this show, where you don't take things for granted, we're always questioning first principles. That's how you got to operate, right?
100%.
And with that, let's get into our show with James Darius Ball. Joining us today is James Ball, Director of the Future Cities Initiative at the National Building Museum in Washington, D.C. James is a visionary leader at the intersection of design, policy, and storytelling, working to inspire new ways of thinking about how we build and shape the cities of tomorrow. Through the Future Cities Initiative, James is curating conversations, exhibitions, and collaborations that explore some of the most critical challenges of our time: climate change, equity, resilience, and innovation in the built environment. With a background in architecture, urbanism, and cultural engagement, James is passionate about creating spaces where diverse perspectives can come together to reimagine our urban future. His work champions the power of design, not just as a solution, but as a catalyst for change, helping cities, communities, and individuals envision what's possible. So, James, welcome to the Let's Talk More Action podcast.
Let's do it. Let's get it done.
Very impressive background. You're a very impressive guy, someone I've followed and admired for a long time. We're honored to have you on the show, but we like to get right to work here. So, how are you taking action right now to make the world a better place?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. I've been working on this issue of making our built world better for 18 years. And as I've tackled different approaches to that, from consulting, government side, private sector side, I always felt like the Peter Drucker quote of "culture eats strategy for breakfast" was a little bit too poignant. And so when I had an opportunity to move over to the National Building Museum, I said, heck yeah. This is the messenger, the venue, the platform that I believe can truly do the inspiring work to shift our narrative, to use the language and the storytelling that's actually going to get everybody on board and moving in the right direction here. Because I think if we're honest, we're almost at a bit of a stalemate. We're not exactly in a get shit done mentality at the moment. And I think in order to get there, we need a new narrative. We need a rallying cry that's actually going to bring people together and motivate the action. So that's part of what I'm working on here, and it's something exciting and new for me. But I'm thrilled to have kind of a unique new cultural lens to this conversation.
Joel likes to make fun of me for being an idiot and being dense at times. I have no idea what the National Building Museum is. Can you explain to our audience what it is and what pulled you in as, what got you so excited to work there?
100%. I mean, first of all, it can only best be experienced in person. We are in downtown Washington, D.C., in the nation's capital. We are chartered by Congress in 1980 to be the nation's museum for buildings. And the building itself is historic. It goes back to 1883 when it was constructed as the pension office and a space for hosting inaugural balls. So it has an absolutely magnificent Great Hall with huge Corinthian columns. It is breathtaking. And we are hosting exhibitions, programs, curating archives, educational activities for all age groups, all audiences. We do things online, in person. So there's really something for everyone at the National Building Museum, especially if you happen to care about or think that the world that we design and build is impactful and important to our daily lives. Happen to be one of those people. So I knew about the museum for quite a while, was always a big fan. And when the opportunity came up to direct and lead a brand new initiative, which is the first time that we are combining all those things the museum does with the singular long-term focus on cities as the center of the conversation, I begged for them to take me, and they did.
Well, as you may or may not know, the Let's Talk More Action podcast is arguably the fastest growing podcast in America. And, we're looking to take the show on the road and cool locations. So now that we know someone in high place there, could we get a live show at the museum at some point?
I'm literally on the 4th floor. It is a high place. It's a spectacular venue to do it. We should talk.
We should talk. Okay. Well, I met you, I don't know, a couple years ago. I think when you were at GreenBiz, we were talking about maybe doing a panel at Verge, and sadly that didn't come to fruition, but that led to hopefully what you consider a friendship. I consider it a friendship. Someone I see and admire. What the message you just were launched into here was like catalyzing voice and inspiring, and maybe we're not in the right mindset as an industry. So I guess, how do you professionally, where you are now, it sounds like you jumped at a cool opportunity, but your ability now to affect change, how's that working? How does that happen in this role?
Yeah, I think so you contrasted this to my last role. I was at GreenBiz, which is a media and event role, so there are similarities. GreenBiz, now Trellis, has a explicit corporate audience. The museum really has a much wider breadth, including the general public. And I think for me, that's perhaps always, I say always, how long has that been a missing link in the building industry of actually thinking about the general public? And I think I think we think that we don't need to, and I think that's fundamentally wrong. I think that we often look at business to business, right? Manufacturers sell stuff to architects and engineers sell stuff to developers get financing. Yes, eventually somebody's going to live there, but just the marketing team or the property manager has to care about that, right? And that misses the fact that when you walk up to the average person on the street, even when you walk up to somebody that's inside the National Building Museum and you say, how does the built world affect you? How is it contributing to climate change? They say, it's kind of like, it's in the background. I don't know. To pay my rent. Like, they don't understand the critical importance, the daily impact on our economics and affordability, right? Rent, mortgage is one of the largest costs you're going to live. Health, right? We are only unfolding the science of how indoor air quality and design and biophilia and aesthetics impact your daily happiness and wellness and health. We can go on and on. The point is, buildings are misunderstood. And we need to bring a new message, a broader message, that everybody starts to put the buildings away from the background and a bit more center stage. And while I have the mic, I'll say I think that part of the dilemma on that is the individual building might be the wrong unit. It might be the wrong character in this play. Because at a building level, sure, again, I might live in one, I'm going to work in one, but it doesn't probably connotate a deeply emotional connection. Home-wise, yes, I'm there with that. But when you zoom out and you talk at a city level, you open up a whole new host of conversations around identity and belonging, and people get passionate about where they're from, right? Your sports team, your food, your culture, your place, like who you are can relate to your place. And that's often your city or your region or, your town, but it's probably not your individual building. So I think there's this kind of all this is rolling off your question of kind of the new opportunity and what this initiative does, as well as what the museum can bring, which is that truly human-centric conversation that pulls on the emotional levers. And it's not just this like, hey, 30 years climate change or this, that, like, and I realize that's way more immediate and all the rest, but still, those messages have not mobilized mass demand and action around what we're trying to do. So just teasing out some of the potential ways in which we need to rewrite that story.
James, I couldn't agree more that our current messaging doesn't work. Do you have a sense of what does or what will? Is that one of the things that you guys are working on?
Definitely something we're working on, and I'll say I don't think it's my job to know. I think it's my job to facilitate and host that conversation. I use the line of like, I don't have a crystal ball for the future, but I can include you in shaping it, which is cheeky, but it's also like, that's what people don't feel. They feel a certain sense of disempowered, like my built world happens to me, right? I can't like go and shape it. In fact, I think it's viewed as very permanent, which it's not. It's inevitably always changing and needs updating and investment. So, so we have language. I'm happy to dive into the language piece if you want to keep going on that route. But I think more important is that to this same conversation of identity and belonging is if you include people in the work of creating that vision, of exploring that path forward, they gain a sense of ownership in it. And so this, I can speak to a few examples of what that work is, but we are building and hosting these platforms, which is meant to broadcast this very open and working with partners, right? Again, we have a broad reach, but we know that we're not reaching everybody we want to. This ecosystem approach, to bring in a little bit of biomimicry inspiration here and using nature to teach us, right? An ecosystem approach to how you do this says, this is nodes, right? This is a collection of actors, and each of those speaks different language, speaks to different audiences. The messaging has to evolve and has to be unique to each of those. But yes, we've got, again, an incredibly large space to be able to host those different conversations in different ways. Think much more strategically around who's the right messenger with the right talking points for the right audience. And gosh darn, we need to be out of the echo chamber, because we pull the same people saying the same thing to the same people for a lot of my career.
Yeah.
And so that's the shakeup.
I think Owen and I will agree with you there. This is something's coming to mind here that is a little out of left field for what we usually talk about, but because of the role you're in and this thing, the museum perspective, I spent some time working at a city. I love thinking about cities, like you talk about the right scale that we should be thinking about in this play. And even now, my work at Cambio, we're starting to think more about cities and how we can help them at scale. But I don't know, maybe it's this interest that the algorithms I get attracted to on LinkedIn or Twitter or Instagram. Like I see a bunch of posts, it feels like recently, where it's like, we used to build cool stuff, and it shows like a shot of cities where there used to be, maybe you've posted this stuff, like, very interesting details on city buildings or lampposts or sidewalks or benches that like we used to intentionally design to look cool and be part of the aesthetic of that city, and then it juxtaposes like, now we build, and it just shows a bunch of concrete blocks. It looks very efficient, and light posts that are boring, and nothing about this what used to be. Is that a real phenomenon? Like, is that something what's the museum kind of curating about that dynamic?
Again, I want to caveat, I can't speak from a statistical analysis and deep research of that, but I will give you my personal opinion on it, which is that, we depending on who you talk to, we look at real estate as a financial market. Right, architects increasingly look at it as a project they have to manage. Right, there's a whole, and this is I might throw this in here. Right, this is in this book, the most recent kind of top read of abundance, that we have so constrained through policies, through requirements, the development of our built world, that it is no longer this expression, my own words, not in the book, this no longer this expression of the human spirit, which genuinely is what it is anyway. We've just kind of like so much constrained that it no longer can appeal to that lived experience, right? Which is again is this like the fact that we shape our built world or we shape our buildings and then they shape us. And genuinely, right? Like creating our physical spaces is one of the most like impactful, tangible, daily things our society does. Period. Full stop. Right? Think of any other area of technology or consumer products. It's like, sure, they're there, they're transformative, but our built space, I don't think that conversation is elevated to its actual level of importance and impact that it's having on us. So there's a need to really bring this conversation at a moment like this when I think everybody's kind of looking for, where do we focus? Where's the path ahead? Like, we got so much we're trying to do. We are so behind on so many things we're trying to make happen. What's the priorities? And yeah, I'm biased, but I think the built world as a bipartisan or nonpartisan focus on infrastructure and the world around us and gets to the heart of affordability crisis and housing and all these things that we know unlock these other things around jobs, around access, right, around quality of life. That's my rallying cry. That's what I'm trying to get out into the world.
What was the
think we've
book
seen it.
for those
Go
who
for it, Joel.
aren't watching? What's the?
The book is Abundance by Ezra Klein and Derek Thompson.
Oh, I saw Derek Thompson. He was on the Bill Simmons podcast talking about this. Yeah, sounds interesting.
I'm halfway through, but it, and I can't say I agree with everything in it, but I do like the way it is describing the need to reassess the priorities, get clearer about our North Star and what we're really working towards and our why, and then really remove barriers, right? We're in a reset moment, I think is one way to frame it. And there's going to be a resilience moment of coming out of that. And I think that's the conversation I'm excited to have, is like, what really gets us, lined up at the line, ready to go as the rebuilding begins, because we're kind of in a teardown moment.
And sorry to jump in front of you, Owen, and I'll get back to you, but it felt like in the podcast I listened to where Derek Thompson was in describing the book, one of the theses that he talked about is something you just alluded to, which is like maybe blaming the Democratic Party. I don't know, maybe blaming government for this like over-regulation that is preventing all of us from doing everything we need to do.
And either way, the blame game isn't helpful. Let's chart the work forward, right? Let's talk more action here. What are we talking about? Let's talk about the action. Let's describe the action that needs to happen, how we're going to get it done. The how is so critical to that. We even in the industry and our work, we think about this, the vision, the what does this look like? What's the criteria? What's the prescriptive elements? What's the performance? Let's talk about how we do it. That transforms outcomes, right?
I feel like we've seen talking about like this big reset that you're talking about. I feel like we're starting to see it on the fringes of real estate. Like we interviewed someone who was focused on, I don't even remember the term, but it was agriculture-focused communities. And now, Joel, I don't know if you're seeing this.
Agrihood is what he calls it.
Agrihoods, right? Yep. Now there's surf park-focused communities. And maybe some of this is right, maybe some of this is wrong, but it seems like at the fringes of sort of single-family home developments, you're starting to have people sort of rethink, like, what is a community? How should this stuff be built? I haven't seen it in city infrastructure yet, but I mean, it seems like it's coming.
Amen. I mean, that idea of like the different ways that communities can look and feel. I mean, this is the deeper human work. I mean, now you're getting me ramped up. This is the personal work that needs to be a part of this conversation. We think about it at a societal level. We think about it as our buildings. How do you show up to the work? I'm deeply passionate as part of this Future Cities initiative that it is about an optimistic view. I think if you show up afraid and with a need to conform and with a preconceived notion of what the result is going to be, you've shut down creativity, you've shut down the ability to create something that's truly awe-inspiring, and that everybody else is going to lie to them and say, yes, I want that. Yeah. So
Yeah.
so that just like to vibe on that community piece for a second. Yeah, diverse communities. Again, let's learn from nature. We are nature. Not even learn from it. We're nature. Let's go back to our true selves. Let's reveal the true, authentic, natural person and human species we are. Diversity creates resilience. You need different ways that communities look.
Yeah.
Single family home doesn't need to be the American dream anymore. It
Yeah.
shouldn't be the American dream anymore. A tapestry of communities that express the beautiful uniqueness of different regions and cultures and demographics, you name it. That, it not just creates resilience, it creates beauty.
But this is like the typical tragedy of the commons conversation, right? Like, whose responsibility is it? You going back to cities being more interesting. Is it we need city governments to think more interesting? We need more developers like the AgriHood guy and the surf park people. Like, yeah, we could sit here and talk about less talk, more action. Like, who needs to take these more interesting actions in your mind, James?
First of all, I'm not sure that's the tragedy of the commons. Number two, I would say that goes back to the blame game of this isn't just about who. I would say this is about how, and this idea of like who's going to do it. Everybody needs to be a part of this. This future we're kind of co-create is like everybody has a role. Whether that's, think about how you shape your city. I don't shape my city. I don't work on cities. I'm just a resident. Oh, so you pay rent in a city? You're supporting the tax base in a city? Oh, no, I live in the suburbs. Okay, so then you're making an economic choice to not support the tax burden of the city. Where do you shop? Those are examples, right? You don't have to show up to a community meeting to recognize that everybody, every day, makes decisions that are shaping this. And yes, we need leaders. We need new types of leaders. I was reading the statistic of how many lawyers are in government. Yeah, let's bring some new professions in. Let's bring some new perspectives in. That's the how, though. Let's bring artists into the conversation, right? This is the fun I get to do at the museum. We're planning some really cool events coming up. And it's going to bring in different groups doing different things and positioning those together so we can see things in a new way. Unlock the new solutions. That didn't like give you the satisfying answer you want, where it's like, this person is going to do it and then it's done. Because it's not that simple. It's a complex, dynamic system of a lot of different actors, the ecosystem of actors. But the current hierarchy and the way we perceive those roles isn't getting us there. So let's shake it up. Let's change how we do it. Let's change who's talking to who. Let's put in different messengers with different people. That's the fun work. That's the creative work. This actually is creative work. It can be fun work. It can be exciting work and inspiring work if we get out of our own way and say this is a new moment. Let's approach it with new energy and change how we do the conversation so that we can get to some new outcomes.
I think Joel and I are thinking the same thing, which is like we've lived in the implementation world for so long. Everything you're saying sounds great, but I'm still struggling with the how itself. Like, how does this happen? To Joel's point, look, who do we need and where do we need them to actually move the needle in rethinking how things are developed?
Yeah, and look, I this is a bit of the luxury I have, right? I admit, I was a practitioner and I was like, but I need to show up and I have a client telling me that they don't have the budget to do the thing that I need to do.
Yeah.
But I also think that that's a necessary step back and perspective in order to see solutions, right? That's a design mentality versus an engineer mentality. You've heard this, right? Like the engineer says, I see a problem. Let me look closer. The designer says, I see a problem. Let me look at context.
Yeah.
Designer. So for me, it's like step back and you say, okay, we don't have the performers that work for affordable housing right now. We need to rethink LIHTC, right, and tax credits. I agree. Let's look holistically at that financial package and system. And sometimes where you find solutions are not where you're looking for them. Sometimes it's like, yeah, it's the pre-development funding, or it's I want to give you something a little bit, try and be more practical for you here. Like, heard the other one that I don't know the details of it, but the idea is how can I lock in a loan that covers my construction costs and keeps that rate as fixed going into my secured asset, right? Not my realm, but like that exists in some places. It's highly successful in those, but it's highly regulated. And yet the fundamental idea of being able to get a loan that can see you through the full acquisition of land and construction and then, operations and maintenance, those are big unlocks. And usually I think we're kind of stuck in the system, right? You don't get the tabula rasa any time, anywhere. We're always working with the current system we've set up. and there's a lot of inertia to it, and it feels really hard to move. But we are in a moment where we have a massive change happening. That's an opportunity if you flip the script on it and you say, at some moment we're rebuilding here. We're tearing down right now. That is a big opportunity to say, let's come with that best understanding we have and look holistically at the different pieces that need to come together. Let me throw out another one. Prefab, right? We know a big issue with that is actually insurance and like when you need to put money down in order to get that design going through the factory. That's this weird like, wait, but aren't we just focused on the construction when we talk about prefab? It's like, yeah, but the financing over here is a key unlock. But those groups don't talk to each other.
Yeah.
That's such a good example too. People have been talking about, I feel like, prefab forever, and I don't know of any that's like, nailed it and is now scaled.
No.
But James, I know you're an entrepreneurial guy. I feel like one time you and I, maybe it was Philly, we're walking down to get food and at Greenbuild, and we were talking about let's start a business together. So I know you think about this stuff a lot. Not trying to ask you to jump from your current job, which sounds like you're stoked about, but like if you were ready to say like, okay, I'm ready to dive in and start my own thing to tackle all these problems I know exist, is there a place you think you'd go? Is it prefab insurance?
I mean, first of all, what makes you think I'm gonna roll out my $1 million ideas on this call?
You got to build in public. That's how it happens now.
Lessons I need to learn. I genuinely don't know. I have 1 million ideas a day, man. I think that there's some product shifts. I think that a lot of what we do is hard to see and feel. And I think sometimes we focus, I've focused on performance and these attributes, but I think that like what I'm going to roundabout kind of answer, but also just take this on my own. The world of biophilia right now, like what we are learning and understanding, and we call it biophilia because we wanted to give it this name and aesthetic, but fundamentally we are just learning how much your physical space and the way it appears changes your health, wellness, daily life, etc. To rethink the way that some of these retrofit solutions that we need show up in our space. Okay, fine, I'll give you one of them. Interior insulation.
Here we go.
We need insulation on exterior walls. It's hard to retrofit. To go inside of a wall, tear down the wall. Exterior, you got to redo exterior. Interior, you're losing square footage. No great solutions. But if you think about it as a remodeling, refinish, right? Oh, I'm going to put up wallpaper. It's not wallpaper. It's insulation. But it is a whole system of then being able to hang shelves and pictures and things like that. So I want some new products on the market. I want to rethink about we all this like consumer products and stuff that I feel like we're so culturally obsessed with. How do you become culturally obsessed with your buildings and your space and have products that you are just so passionate about getting because they are awesome and cool and change the look and the feel, and it's not like, yeah, I added some insulation to my attic. Like nobody's talking to their neighbor about that.
That's a good
James,
one.
are you paying attention to Adam Newman's most recent venture, Flow, where it's like a combination of community plus commercial real estate ownership of apartment buildings?
I'm not familiar with that.
It's like so much of what you're talking about it seems to be what he's trying to do, and I have no idea if he's being successful at it or not.
Do you know who Adam Newman is, James?
That doesn't ring a bell.
He's the kind of, infamous CEO of WeWork. There was TV shows about him.
Of course.
In the intro to the show, when you listen to it, I make fun of...
Now it's clicking. I have read about this. Yeah.
I make fun of Owen and call him the Adam Newman of Green Building in our intro. Which, Adam Newman, we'd love to have you on. Interesting guy.
If anybody hears that product and wants to build it, give me a call. We're going to get it done.
Yeah, I like this. So it should be a new bit.
That's the kind of stuff that happens on Let's Talk More Action.
Startup ideas.
And inventors and ideas and venture capital, it all comes together. This is our audience. But I have the same challenge. Even stuff you're talking about, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but like I live in an old house and I have built a living building challenge building, which you and I know, James, is at the forefront of considering in indoor air quality or environmental quality in general and every aspect of its thesis. And one of my older daughters, she snores, and my wife and I are trying to figure out, is it an environmental thing? And, I got air purifiers and plants, and I'm like, there's got to be an easier way. And then I'm also thinking about, I got insulation problems. This house is old and needs all kinds of energy efficiency upgrades. And was looking at insulation being blown into the cavities, and I'm like, I know that stuff's not good. So whatever you're thinking about here, I think you were,
Joel's
throwing
gonna
a
be your
couple.
prototype.
Yeah, let's do it.
I've built a prototype in my home. That's all I can say right now. Again, reach out to me
Something like
if you'd like to
wallpaper
discuss
meets
further.
insulation meets the ability to hang things. That's another pain point I have. I hate finding studs and all that stuff.
All right, let's set up some separate calls here.
This is
Hold
why
on,
we were vibing on that walk at
we're-
Greenbells. Yeah.
We're getting it. You teed up something else. I got to give a shout out. Living Future, the Living Building Challenge. I just got off their conference and it was phenomenal. I just want to say this to everybody listening. If you've lost hope, if you're frustrated, if you don't know where to look, find community, and that's one of them. That is the people that were there at the beginning. I'm
Well said. It breaks my
humble-
heart after you say that I wasn't there. Yeah. So true.
humbled to have been, done this as long as I can. There's people doing it a lot longer than I have that are there and doing a lot more than I have. And just to be among that crowd and say, whatever is happening in this world, wherever it is, we are here to do this work. And that community and that empowerment is just like, it's what keeps me going for sure.
Well, not to, we're running out of time a little bit, but since you went there, I couldn't attend. I think you and I were chatting. I was hoping to meet up with you there, but I heard that Jason McLennan, the founder of Living Future Institute, said something to the effect the green building movement is dead. I don't know. Can you report out on that? What was the message?
The death and life, a little bit of Jane Jacobs reference there, and I don't want to steal his thunder. I know he's out there spreading the gospel, but I think everybody was vibing with the need to, I'm gonna choose my word here, but take our lessons learned, restock, retool, right? Bring a new understanding of what's next. I think it was both, yes, it's dead and it lives on in a new form, right? Like, and that's always been true. This industry has been constantly evolving. Like all this stuff going on right now, it's like, great, reinvent ourselves. That's what we do. We have to keep doing that. That's the work. It's a dynamic, evolving system. Anytime you think we're done, you're wrong. We're never done. This isn't an end. This is a journey. You can quote that.
Yeah, well said. Well, Owen, we're gonna have to wrap up. Any last questions for our amazing
No,
guest
I mean,
here?
I'm not as plugged into the green building community as you two are, but I'm just curious, like, where does this sentiment of green building's dead, we need to rebuild, like, what is driving that?
I think it's just one, that like a lot of programs, regulations, financing that we have right now is being torn down. And I think even without that happening, there's a moment of realizing like lead was always like the top performers, right? So it was chasing market transformation, right? It was gamifying. It's like, what's next? If we're truly trying to normalize this, if this is about becoming every building is a net zero energy, resilient, high performance building, then there's stages of market adoption. That's a new moment, right? It's not just early adopters. It needs to become mainstream adoption. What that looks like is it needs to be different. So, I mean, that's my take on it. But I think that, it's just a new moment in the movement. It needs to be.
I feel this sentiment in the greater sustainability movement of like all the shit that's going on with the current administration is somehow perpetuating into our industry. Some of it is real, some of it is not, but it's like it's a vibe shift because of what's happening at a higher level that doesn't necessarily need to perpetuate into sustainability. That's how I feel. I just feel like the negativity I think it's a little bit overplayed.
But there's also, as James might be saying, and James McLennan was saying, Jason McLennan, is that while that might be some of the sentiment, this is an opportunity to galvanize around the hope and optimism.
Look, I mean, I'm the biggest advocate of the industry. Like, I think we need to do whatever it takes to scale whatever needs to be done. But I also think everyone in the industry doesn't need to freak out because of who the president is for the next 4 years.
No, and I'll put my last word in and say that there's shocks and strains to systems, right? Like, I think we were already under strain. Like, we hadn't gotten over the tipping point as a movement, right? We were still fighting an uphill battle. I do think this is a shock to the system. A lot of things we built and have created are under attack, being dissolved, defunded, etc. So like there's need for alarm. And still the spirit we bring to that matters. And I don't think that's like fortify, put up fists, like become tense, like that creates a lack of innovation and creativity that I think we deeply need right now. So the strains are already there. I do think this is a shock. And either way, there's going to come a moment after, I say after, like this evolves into a moment that we darn well better be ready for. And again, I would say it's how we show up, where we source ourselves from, and how we then do the work that is going to be the biggest determinant of what we are able to get done.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good segue to our final question, James. I think a question you're going to love based on the vibe you've brought to the show today. In a movement, as we're maybe alluding to here, that sometimes gets caught in pessimism and the news cycles focusing on the negativity, what brings you hope for the future?
Definitely, I think community is a key word to that, but I also want to give a personal note. I wake up sometimes without the energy. And a personal practice for me that's around meditation and breath work and yoga. How do you recharge yourself? How do you source that hope from inside of yourself and say, yeah, I could get down right now. There's plenty of shit to feel bad about, but that's not the energy I want to bring to this world and this work. And so you can find that with friends. You can find that at a Friday night pizza party at our house out in Hyattsville, Maryland. and you can find that for yourself in a moment where you take a walk in nature, or you do that workout, or you listen to that music. I've heard the quote, sometimes the wind's at your back, sometimes it's against you, and sometimes you have to be your own wind. And I think right now we need people generating their own wind.
Owen and I met in Santa Barbara, grad school, became surfing buddies. So I would throw surfing in there. And there's definitely an analogy about, the waves aren't always good, but you're in the ocean, and the next set will always come.
Yeah, self-care, it's important.
Well, thank you, James. It's been a pleasure. How can we find you? Anything to plug? I know you're active on LinkedIn. Anywhere else for our guests to follow along in your journey?
Yeah, follow the story on LinkedIn. That's where I'm most active on the medias. And then check out National Building Museum, nbm.org. And you can learn all about the incredible programs, online events. Next Friday, we've got a session called Future Fridays. It's bringing an optimistic conversation to resilience in cities. We've got some great speakers, highly interactive format. So stay tuned.
Very
Thanks,
cool.
James.
Well, my family, we've relocated from California back to the Northeast where I grew up, and I haven't taken my daughters to DC yet since we've been back. So maybe this summer we'll meet up at the museum. That sounds fun.
It's time.
Well, thank you, James. Thank you, Owen. Thank you, everyone, for joining. You can find Owen and I on LinkedIn, usually actively antagonizing the more talk, more complaining sustainability crowd. You can find this podcast and more great content at lesstalkmoreaction.com. If you like the podcast, please subscribe, like, and share with your friends. And until next time, we encourage you to ask yourself, what are you doing to take action to make the world a better place?